guys, Rob here. Today I kind of wanted to have a brief video talking a little bit about nutrition during your time doing a triathlon or say a longer distance running event. A lot of it will depend upon how long the event is that you're doing. In general terms, the night before, I wouldn't advise having a super high carb meal or a really heavy meal, because that'll kind of weigh you down the next day or can cause you some upset tummy. Food that has some carbs in it as well as some salt the night before would be a good thing. Help you retain some of that fluid. But in general, if you're maintaining your diet, you are going to have about 2,000 calories of reserve stored in your liver. So if you're doing a sprint event or like a 5K, nutrition really shouldn't be a factor. It's once you kind of hit events that are roughly 2 hours and longer, where you're going to have to kind of start to build in some nutrition. So for those longer events, typically what I would do is have a very light breakfast, maybe a banana or yogurt, something that's high in, say, sugars or protein. And then if it's, say, an Olympic distance event or longer, typically, depending on how I feel, my gut feels in the morning, I may have a little bit of a protein type bar, and then about 30 to 45 minutes before an event, I'll typically have a gel. I've been using honeystinger for 6-7 years. They have a bunch of different flavors, and I like them, so I use them before the swim. And then again, depending upon the length of the event, so if it's, say, an Olympic distance event, I won't really have anything in transition out of the swim. And then when I'm on the bike is when I'll fuel. Typically I'll have a gel roughly every 30 to 45 minutes. So I might have one on the bike, maybe two if it's like sort of a longer Olympic distance event. And then for the run, if it's Olympic distance, I'll typically maybe have one gel, or I might even have that in transition before the run. So in total, I would say about anywhere between 2 to 4 gels for an Olympic distance event. When we start talking longer distances, like a half Ironman distance, a middle distance, a 70.3 event, again, I may have some version of a bar. In the morning, after breakfast, when I'm at the event, about 40 minutes or so beforehand, then I'll have a gel. For the half Ironman distance, I tend to be a little slower in transition to kind of regroup and gather myself, and I may typically I'll put down another gel before I hop on the bike. And then since that is about a 56-mile bike ride, I'll start to take nutrition roughly every half hour. Typically it'll be a gel. I'll show you a bunch of products here that I do use, but I will mix it up sometimes just for sort of a difference in mouthfeel and for energy. I'll even use some squeeze packets of almond butter. So then when it comes to the run or the transition off the bike, again, I will have, say, a gel then. And at that point, I typically shy away from the almond butter because it can create a little bit more dry mouth, and it's harder to kind of hydrate as well while you're running, even if you have a hydration pack on, versus when you're on the bike, which is almost like having a buffet between the food and the nutrition and the hydration. But I'll try to maintain the chews or the gel at roughly that same half hour, 45-minute period on the run. It's a little bit harder because your gut's moving around during the run to take on those calories. I have not yet done a full distance Ironman. I was supposed to have last year before my injury. Supposed to this year, but we'll see with COVID. For longer running races, like I've done a couple marathons, I would say same thing. I'll take an energy gel and maybe like half of an energy bar before the race, and then I'll start to try to take the energy gels and chews roughly every half hour for, say, a marathon. I will try to get a little bit of a protein almond butter in, but not as frequent as, say, when I'm on the bike for a long distance triathlon. So I just kind of wanted to show you the different options. They're roughly all about 100 calories, which some might be 90 calories, but when you start looking at your energy burn rate, you know, most gels, they all come in at about 100 calories, which for most people, if you take it on the half hour for longer distance events, like I said, half Ironman, marathons, that typically will kind of get you by. We can talk more about the specifics on an Ironman distance because that's a little bit different. But anyhow, let me just kind of run through them now. This honeystinger, this one is the, where is it up here? It's the Acai pomegranate. I also enjoy the mango, I think orange. Those are my favorite two flavors. I will then use typically a chewy chocolate chip Cliff Bar before an event, maybe about half of that bar. These here are these, they're like chews. These are Gatorade ones. They're decent. They're a little bit saltier than I find than, say, something like the honeystinger. But sometimes I'll mix it up and have these. And then lastly, as I had mentioned, I'll use things like a squeeze almond butter. Typically, I kind of have to rub this in my hands to kind of activate it and get it loose and get it warmed up. But these are the type of nutritional products I typically do use. I find it works pretty well for me. And I'll have future videos where I talk more specifically about things like hydration, because that's a whole nother situation. Again, it all depends upon the length of the event, obviously the conditions of the event. If it's hot, is it humid, do you have hills, etc., in terms of your hydration status. So I'll try to come up with some videos in the next few weeks. I had missed a couple weeks with all the craziness from COVID, but you should be seeing weekly videos. Feel free to comment below about any nutritional tricks that you may have. Like I said, these are just some of the products that I use, and I find that it works pretty well for me. All right, take care. Bye now.